All right, folks, it's here. The May 29th, 2023 banned and restricted announcement. Wizards of the Coast has banned 3 cards. Standard. Oh boy, here we go. First card banned. Fable the Mirror Breaker. Look, this is just like pretty obvious, right? Fable the Mirror Breaker, best card in the format. It's not even close. It really, really isn't at this point. It's seeing play in actual every format. It's the kind of card where you really need to find an excuse not to play it, rather than try and find an excuse to play it. And that is the #1 reason to ban a card, because it's just so ubiquitous across multiple decks, and it's just hard to build a deck that doesn't play it. Even if you're building a deck that's not, say you're building a dragon deck or something that doesn't really have any, any really want for like this 3-mana goblin making enchantment thing, you gotta play it anyway. It's just too good, and that's an issue. It makes deck building less fun. It's a very fun card in general because it kind of greases the wheels and stuff like that. But all in all, I think Fable being banned was a foregone conclusion. Not a particularly big surprise or anything like that. Fable the Mirror Breaker, we'll see in other formats. We'll see in Cube Draft. Not too worried about this one. Very, very good for the format. Very happy with this one. Thumbs up, Wizards. Our second card banned is Reckoner Bankbuster, and this is one that I think is also just a slam dunk. Bankbuster falls into the category of 2-mana colorless cards that are probably just a little too good, and because of that, it's a much bigger issue than it would be if it was a card that cost white, or a card that costs blue, green, or whatever. Being colorless means you can play in literally any deck. And we've seen this before in the past, cards like Smuggler's Copter or cards like Umezawa's Chite, where when you turn the dial a little bit too much on a card like this, everyone can play it. And once everyone starts playing it, that's an issue. Same problem with Ubiquity. Actually, worse than Fable the Mirror Breaker, because Fable's at least red. You gotta splash red in your mono white deck to play it, whereas Bankbuster, you can play it in literally every deck. And Bankbuster is also the kind of card that really, really kind of leans into this mid-range metagame that Standard's been mired in for a very, very long time now. And I think it's you don't really need to support mid-range. Mid-range will always exist because it's just a combination of really good cards and threats and removal spells. You can always build that deck, whether there's support for it or not. So Bankbuster being gone, I think, is a very, very healthy thing for the format. Very, very happy about that one. Again, thumbs up. The third card banned is Invoke Despair, and this is a card that wasn't actually on my list of banned cards. So I had an article I wrote last week and did a video on it also of the 4 cards I wanted to see banned. Invoke Despair was basically missed on tiebreakers for me. It was my 5th card where if I had to ban one more card, I would have, but ultimately wouldn't have. But I'm not unhappy with this at all, honestly. Invoke Despair is obviously weird to see a black, 1 sorcery banned, but this is the kind of card where it's less about ubiquity, where like it was with Bankbuster or Fable, and more about both kind of raw power level as well as putting a stranglehold on the format. And I mean that not necessarily in power level, but in the ability to play fun enchantments, fun planeswalkers, and then what WotC properly mentioned in their announcement was that this card makes it hard to play other cards. This card also makes it hard to counterplay the black decks, where typically you're playing against a removal-heavy mid-range deck. The way you beat them is to play a good Planeswalker, play a good enchantment, play some card they can't kill with their Go for the Throat or their Cut Down, and try and sidestep their removal in some way by playing a different kind of threat, diversifying your bonds, if you will. And Invoke Despair makes it impossible to do that, because you play an enchantment and a Planeswalker, and the Invoke Despair just gets all of them anyway. So I think this card being banned is totally fine. Again, it wasn't on my list, but I think this is a totally reasonable card to ban, in that it frees up a lot of the interesting cards that are in the format, like enchantments and planeswalkers. It frees up counterplay against the black decks, which is good also. And it's just a frustrating card to play against too, which I think is fine. So those are 3 cards that are banned, but that's it though. Only 3 cards, which surprises me a lot, because there were definitely a number of cards that were on my list that I thought could be banned and should be banned. Starting with Raffine Scheming Seer. So we see black being hit, we see red being hit, we see Bankbuster being hit in general. What we don't see at all is Esper being hit or the white cards being hit. And Raffine's busted. Raffine is like, on the play, turn 3 Raffine after a 1-drop and a 2-drop is not unbeatable, but pretty insane as far as how it snowball rolls. And I worry now that either Esper Legends or Esper Midrange is going to have a pretty hard stranglehold in the format. Both those decks are very, very flexible as they're playing multiple colors. They have the ability to board, counter spells if needed, removal spells if needed, enchantment removal if needed. They just have a lot of access to a lot of tools, which is pretty scary. And of course, we've all played Esper at Worlds, last winter, and Esper was insane at Worlds. This worries me a lot, honestly. And I worry that these decks weren't touched at all basically. Whether it was, Raphine, Plaza of Heroes, something like Thalia or whatever, takes a bad ban, but whatever. So, Raphine scares me a lot. Another card not banned is Atraxa, and that was the other card on my list. And I know this is a new card, and they're probably a little loath to ban a new card, because gotta make that money, obviously. But Atraxa is very, very similar to Emrakul, the Aeon's Torn, in that it's a card that invalidates basically everything that happened in the game before it. So once the Atraxa resolves, which is not that hard to do in Standard, obviously, the game just stops being about all the prior Magic being played and starts being about, okay, can you A, kill this monstrous lifelinker you have to kill, you can't win, and B, deal with the 5 cards they just drew. And then the worst case scenario is your opponent also plays an Atraxa, and now you better grab a Snickers, because you're locked in for at least another 20 minutes of grinding here as both players draw 1,000 cards and kill things, and the game never ends. So I think Atraxa is a really fun card for Eternal formats. It's a cool commander card, but as far as the power level of Standard, I think Atraxa is way over the bar. I think Standard would be a much better format if Atraxa wasn't legal. The ramp decks have cards like Atali and Titan of Industry to ramp into, which is totally fine. Both those cards are very, very good. I think Atraxa is too much, personally. Not very happy about that. Otherwise, I think Wedding Announcement is one of the other big cards that was not hit here. Wasn't on my list, but is a card that I'm also very, very on the fence about, similar to Invoke Despair when I made my list. Whereas no card removed from the white decks here. Mono white control loses Bankbuster, which I think is very, very important. But Wedding Announcement's also really good. It's similar to the vein of Fable, but not as good, obviously. But it concerns me a little bit. Again, mid-range, white stuff, white control. I don't know. We'll see. So a little worried about Wedding Announcement. But again, my 2 big ones here are Raffine and Atraxa. That scare me a lot. So we'll obviously see how that goes and see how it shakes out. So this is a big one, and they've announced that they're only going to do these announcements once a year, except for an emergency period 3 weeks after each set releases for like the big mistakes, like Feldar Guardian, where they just missed that combo with Saheeli, or Oko Thief of Crowns, the extreme outliers, just to have a backdoor way to kind of like, okay, we can fix this now, but only for extreme cases. So that's a little weird. We'll see. Is this too much? Is this too little? Let me know what you think in the comments. Obviously, this is a huge change to Standard, and this is a big one also because they want to revitalize Standard. You got to get this right. So we'll see how it goes. So I'm Tim Davis, pro Magic player, full-time content creator. It's first time with that follow button. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. I do videos like this. I do gameplay videos and all sorts of stuff, and I play on the Pro Tour as well, which is cool. And make sure you follow. All right. So thanks for watching, folks. Appreciate it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Make sure you like the video, and I'll see you.